FSElite at FS Weekend is proudly sponsored by Aerosoft. Be sure to check out all of their products at aerosoft.com.
Hey everyone, and welcome to FS Weekend. I am joined by Mathijs from Aerosoft, and we're going to talk all about FS Weekend, the A330, the new CRJ, and also this new product called OnAir. So thank you very much for joining me, and welcome.
Welcome.
How are you doing?
Cold.
Very cold. And you were the one who suggested to come outside in the fresh air.
Yeah, I was optimistic about Dutch weather.
Very optimistic, but the scenery out here is amazing. I mean, just looking around, we've got all these historic aircraft. So maybe you can just fill us in a little bit about the history of the event and also why this is such an important event for flight simulation.
Actually, we don't remember the year that it started, but around 25, 26 years ago, I talked to Microsoft, the Netherlands, and asked them, would it be nice to do something about flight sim and an event? They said, great idea, here's a credit card. So we organized it the first year. Was back at the this is now called the Avio Drome. It was then called the Avio Dome, and it was at Schiphol airport. And we expected something like 80 people, and about 3,000 people turned up. We had fights with the fire department and the whole thing. And ever since that, we've done this every year. I've done it 12 years, somebody else took over. If you are commercial in the business, you shouldn't run these things. So somebody else took over, but it's still running good. And it's probably the best show if you're into hardware, cockpits. There's all the big cockpit companies are here, all the big cockpits are here.
Yeah, that was this is my first time ever to the show, and that was the first thing I noticed was the number of hardware people here was amazing, and they're kind of in all the different corners of the show as well, and you're here with some hardware, well, you're helping to show off some hardware as well. What can you tell us about what you're showing off?
Yeah, of course the biggest thing is that we've got the honeycomb joke for sale. I don't know if we got any left because they went really, really fast. And we've got all the other hardware that we have European license for here.
Awesome. So I think the biggest thing you've got here at the minute, literally speaking as well, is the long-awaited A330 Professional. So tell us just a little bit about the product itself and also maybe the journey that you've had to kind of get to where we are today.
Yeah, a lot of people believe that the product is really late. We don't call it late. We restarted it one time because we were not happy with the product and because Lockheed made a new version of Prepared with so many new features that we couldn't do the product without adding all these new features. So that cost a little bit of delay. Then what we couldn't tell people, and we can tell now, is that the CRJ Pro was done at the same time, partly by the same people. So that made the whole process a little bit longer, but it's basically done. It's a couple of weeks and then it's ready.
So when you last posted on the forum, first week of December, I think you said was your kind of target date. So what kind of features can people expect? What are you most excited for people to try once they can finally download and get a copy in their PC?
I believe that the big highlight of the product is the graphics. I believe it's the best aircraft I've ever seen in the flight sim. Other big things are the electronic flight bag with the charge and the checklist and the flows and these things. Not many companies have done that, and I really think that it makes a difference in how you actually fly the aircraft. If you don't have to use a tablet, the handheld tablet, but use it inside the virtual cockpit, it makes it a little bit more nice, we think.
Awesome. Yeah, so you had the aircraft on display, people were using it, flying it around. The cockpit looks really nice in particular from what we saw as well. So something that's kind of always been interesting about Aerosoft Airbus aircraft is the perspective of the pilot. That is kind of what you focus on. So what features and functionality from the pilot's perspective are you including to the consumer and stuff when that eventually releases?
We have got around 12 Airbus pilots who helped us with this product. Also some Boeing pilots, but we don't listen to them quite quite so much. What we basically ask them is to make images every 5 minutes of the cockpit. So we got an idea of how the cockpit looks in every stage of the flight. When they get in, they unpack their bags. If they get the load sheet, what bits of paper are stuck where, when they get a coffee, how does the food tray look like. So we've got all these images, and we try to get that environment of the crew as realistic as possible, which is a lot more messy than other add-on builders do it. The flight deck of an A330 is just as messy at the end of the flight as the area behind them. It's a mess. There's dirt, there's bits of paper, food wrappers.
Just everything, really.
Yeah. And it is really something that we try to bring into the sim, because we believe it is what we all try to do is we try to pretend that we fly an aircraft, and that's how aircraft are flown, with 2 people and a lot of mess.
So you mentioned 2 people as well, so obviously connected flight deck, is that going to be part of this release?
Yeah, immediately upon the release it should be completely stable and completely ready. For the A320 we're now in the finalized stages of the last updates, which is the same as for the A330, so it should work.
And how does a connected flight deck kind of impact how people use these aircraft and fly with their friends online? I imagine it's quite fun doing some like line training type of things.
Yeah, flying an airliner is a 2-man job. You talk to each other, you joke with each other, you hand over tasks to other people. The whole crew management thing is a huge part of the training of a pilot, and we really believe that should be part of what the sim is. An airline is not flown by a single guy. It is illegal. It's the biggest. People ask us if the wings flex this time. Yes, they do, but that whole missing second person in the cockpit, that's a far bigger crime upon realism.
And you've managed to kind of implement that with the connected flight deck.
Yeah.
Excellent. So the other aircraft that you have here, which you mentioned earlier as well, is the all-new CRJ Professional. So that was kept very, very quiet for a very long time. Was there any rationale behind that? Like, why did you keep it so quiet, considering previously you've kind of announced these things far in advance and shown off previews and stuff?
You know how late the original CRJ was?
I do remember. Yes, I remember the infamous countdown.
I believe that the developer this time didn't want to get into of these issues and only wanted us to show it to people when it was close to being done, and it's now close to being done.
So what kind of new features are there with this new CRJ Professional compared to the old one then?
It's a complete new external, complete new virtual cockpit, done with the same modeler as for the A330. Really nice. It has an electronic flight bag, also with charge, Navigraph, Navdata Pro charge in it, and it's got 550 and the 1000 in it, so it's now 4 models.
Wow, okay, so quite a considerable difference between the 2 versions then.
Yes, yeah, it is, yeah.
Excellent, and we can expect that in the next few weeks.
I sure hope so. It is planned for the next few weeks, yeah.
Fingers crossed, definitely. And the final thing that you have on display is something that was relatively new. Well, it's not relatively new in terms of kind of being developed, as I'm sure you're about to tell us, but that is OnAir, that new airline manager. So can you tell us a little bit of the backstory about how that became such a cherished product for you that's coming out soon?
Yes. 21 years ago, evening with a lot of wine, a French friend and I developed the idea of making a tycoon-like add-on that links to flight sim. You build your airline, you manage your airline. We couldn't do it at the time because we needed service that works a lot better than it did back then. But it is done now. It will be released next week. And it is because we've worked on it for 20 years. You thought that CRJ took a long time. This one took a long time. Because of that, and because it was grown so organically, it's a project, one of my favorite projects ever done.
Almost like a product of passion.
Yeah, it absolutely is. We'll not make much money on this one.
Awesome. Well, I had a little look at it. I've spoken to some of the developers as well. And we published an interview just a few days ago, and we're really excited to kind of get our hands on it as well. I think that's all the time we really have, but thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak to us.
Always.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. And for everyone back at home, hope you enjoy the rest of the content. See you soon.
And now let's go inside. It's cold here.
It is freezing cold.